Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Ragtag Cinema. My name is Chloe Trainer. I'm the artistic director here at Ragtag Film Society. And thank you so much for coming out tonight to see Jurassic Park. Okay, so tonight, extra credit, if you haven't been here before, is our series in partnership with The Connector. This series brings together researchers at the university in conversation around cult classic movies. So tonight we're going to watch Jurassic Park, and then we'll be joined by panelists Casey Holliday, who is an associate professor of pathology and anatomical sciences, and Sarah Jaquet, who is an assistant professor of geological sciences, and the panel will be moderated by John Fortner, a graduate student in pathobiology. So can we give a round of applause for our panelists? So they'll be back after, and there will be plenty of chance for audience questions and conversation as well. So to give you a little bit of an introduction to the film tonight, Jurassic Park brings together director Steven Spielberg with a powerhouse cast, including Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and my countryman Richard Attenborough. This movie opened in 1993 and broke box office records with its first weekend. It made $47 million. And it remains, until this day, Spielberg's most commercially successful film. It is also responsible for a resurgence in interest in paleontology, which had apparently slowed down during the space race. After this film came out, there was a whole new generation of young people who wanted to be paleontologists. And as a result, numerous new dinosaur species have been discovered since then, at roughly the rate of 50 new discoveries per year. So don't say movies don't change the world. The film is an adaptation of a Michael Crichton novel. The process of pre-production actually started before a screenplay had been written because execs were so sure that this novel was going to make a great movie. Crichton estimates that the screenplay has about 10 to 20% of the novel's content actually on screen. James Cameron also has said that he was interested in making Jurassic Park, but the rights were bought a few hours before he could bid. Upon seeing the movie, Cameron realized that Spielberg was much better because his version would have been much more violent. Imagine aliens with dinosaurs. This film continued Spielberg's experimentation with animatronic animals, which we first saw in his previous film, Jaws, where they obviously built an animatronic shark. The dinosaurs that you see in Jurassic Park are partly CGI and partly animatronic. The film was rated highly by critics for those visual effects, but the most difficult to accomplish was the ripples in the glass of water that announced the arrival of a key character. No spoilers here in this introduction. Spielberg was inspired to create this image when he was blasting Earth, Wind, and Fire in his car, and he felt the vibrations of the bass. Didn't imagine that, but sure. And then another interesting fact about this is one of the visual effects team, Michael Lantieri, really didn't know how he was going to achieve this, and he didn't know until the night before they filmed. I'm not going to tell you how they achieved it before the film, but if you want to know, come find me afterwards. Movie magic and all that. And the film went on to win an Oscar for the best visual effects, so clearly that was all worth it. I'm going to stop talking, I'm going to let you enjoy the movie, and then we'll be back afterwards with our panel. Please enjoy. Cool panelists, John, Casey, and Sarah.
All right, well, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Fortner. I'm a PhD student here. I'm joined here by Sarah Jaquet, yes? Jaquet, sorry. Sarah Jaquet, and then my advisor, Dr. Casey Holliday. All right, so I guess we will open the floor to questions. We have any questions? We can talk about the movie, what my favorite dinosaur is, my least favorite dinosaur. Could be anything. Excellent question, young man. My favorite dinosaur is Albertosaurus sarcophagus. It is a smaller relative of T-Rex.
Oh, are you asking for my favorite dinosaur? Okay. Thank you for asking. My favorite dinosaur is Triceratops because my name is Sarah.
There's no dinosaur named after me. But my favorite dinosaur is T-Rex, of course. Dr. Jaquet, did you want to tell us about yourself and how you got here?
Right, yes. Okay, so I'm actually the odd one out here. I'm an invertebrate paleontologist, meaning I study things that don't have a backbone. So I'm more of a marine biologist of the fossil world. But I was inspired by Jurassic Park at a young age. I am one of the many that decided to follow on paleontology because of Jurassic Park. So, yeah.
What about you, Casey?
I saw this movie as a senior in high school, and I saw it twice. It was the first movie I ever went to twice at the theater. I think the next one would probably be Lord of the Rings at some point. Mm-hmm. But I went to college. So actually, Chloe mentioned the space race being a big deal before Jurassic Park. And I actually grew up in Cape Canaveral, near where the space shuttle was taking off. And Jurassic Park showed up, and then I went to college at the University of Florida. But I got a job that you can't get a job out of college. But back in 1998, I got a job right out of college working on Sue the T-Rex, which is another big 1990s dinosaur phenomenon. How many have seen Sue at the Field Museum? Yeah. So if you went to Disney World in 1998, you would have seen me working on Sue's bones in a lab at Disney World. So that kind of rode on the heels of Jurassic Park here. And so that kind of Sue, we CAT scanned stuff, we CAT scanned Sue, and that got me into my job now, which is we study dinosaurs by CAT scanning them and looking inside of them and using anatomy to figure out how they work and how fast they ran or didn't run and stuff like that.
So I have to ask because I'm very curious. So Sarah, I imagine you grew up, super into paleo like I did, right? We grew up with this movie sort of in the ether, like kind of as part of our childhoods.
Absolutely.
And I have to wonder, Casey, so you saw it when you were in high school. So you have that experience of what like dinosaurs were like before Jurassic Park made them popular. What was that difference like in your life?
Wow. Yeah, so there wasn't much. In the 80s, we had a VHS, one of those tape recorder things, that had Superman, Christopher Reeves, on a dinosaur program. And so the only thing we had in the 80s was this one thing hosted by Superman, which was the best thing. I had it on VHS with a David Attenborough show, Living Planet, I think, which was his OG show, too. I was a big nerd. But yeah, Jurassic Park, it still looks great up on the big screen today. And I think that shows the genius of the cinematography, right? Steven Spielberg and the lack of CG that we don't have today makes the movie still work really well, I think. And so the Brachiosaurus scene when they first they turn their head and they look up, and that scene was the coolest thing. I think it still sticks with everybody who might have seen it.
So how much of the dinosaurs did they get raw on the movie?
Oh, well, even as a more marine paleobiologist, I can tell that they're missing a few key features. I think something that they allude to a lot in the movie is how these are related to birds. And there are now many finds out there that have shown that many of these theropod dinosaurs indeed had feathers or some sort of proto-feather at least. So we're missing our feathery sort of plumage on some of these, if you can call it plumage. What do you think, Casey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the raptors would have been feathered. T-Rex, we think their babies might have been feathered and then they grow out of them. We're not sure still. We don't have the fossils yet, but some folks even think Tyrannosaurs might have had some feathers, not like big fluffy peacock feathers, well they could, but even like a little kind of fur of feathers, Yeah.
There are some other inaccuracies with their weird padded feet, I believe. They kind of look like they've got these weird pads on them. That's not a thing.
Oh yeah, like the sauropods, the brachiosaurs all have sort of elephant-style feet. Yeah.
Yep. And then the raptors are holding their arms kind of like this.
Yeah, they have thriller hands. Yeah.
Yeah, thriller hands. Whereas they probably were more kind of like this, ready to pounce, and I believe, yeah.
What other works of art or films cause you to be interested in paleo?
Well, I can say in my case, when I was about in maybe 3rd or 4th grade, BBC's Walking with Dinosaurs came out. It was a big deal. Like, I remember there was this big display thing going on at the mall near where I lived, and I would like beg my parents to take me down there on the weekends to go see it. And this is going to sound sore dorky, but I loved it so much that when we had our like dinosaur unit at school, I like brought my VHS tapes in of Walking with Dinosaurs so that we could all watch it. And I think the teachers were happy because it mean they could just put on the video and let it rip. So, yeah.
I love that. Me too. BBC Dinosaurs. Walking with Dinosaurs was big. I had some relatives in the UK and they actually mailed me a VHS because it aired early there compared to in Australia where I grew up. So I was very excited to receive an early rendition. Maybe close to pirated, but you know.
I'm kind of more of an anatomist. I kind of like dead animals a lot. Doesn't matter if they're really old or recent. And the movies coming up to Jurassic Park that I grew up on were like Terminator, where he's checking out the tendons in his arm, and Aliens, where they're dissecting the face huggers in 88 or whatever. That's the stuff that got me into science and dinosaurs and basically dinosaur anatomy.
Yeah, for the record, there's a new version of Walking with Dinosaurs coming out very soon too. So there is a new version you guys can watch. The gentleman in the front. What dinosaurs have I discovered? So if you go to the Burpin Museum of Natural History in Rockford, Illinois, you will see a Triceratops on display. That Triceratops is named Homer, after Homer Simpson from The Simpsons. And I helped dig up Homer, along with a couple of turtles also in their collections. So yeah, you can go see Homer.
I'm sorry, I have not described any dinosaurs, but I have described a whole bunch of small shelly fossils, and I'm a big lover of Lord of the Rings, so one of my pride and joys is Minas Tirith Silvereni, after Minas Tirith, the big white city, and we even use the Elvish language for white, which is the color of these fossils for Silvereni. So,
You named a fossil after Lord of the Rings?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm not the dorkiest person in this room anymore.
I can't top that.
Yeah, I can't top that. You win.
Speaking of, do we have like a next level nerd sort of piece in our lives? Like, what is the nerdiest thing related to Jurassic Park that you've ever done?
So the nerdiest thing related to this that I've ever done is, so I'm a dungeon master for a D&D group. Yeah, we see all those people here. And as part of my campaign, I'm playing a campaign module called Tomb of Annihilation, which prominently features dinosaurs. And at one point in the adventure, and two of my players are right there. Wave, Kira and Natalie. Can you wave? Yeah. At one point in the adventure, I actually I ran the party through the little kitchen scene that Tim and Alex go through. Yeah. So that's nerdy.
That's pretty next level, Casey.
I can't top that either, but I have a lab with graduate students, and that means I'm making more nerds. So that's pretty nerdy.
That's pretty good. I got married in Australia in the Natural History Museum, and I walked down the aisle to the theme song of Jurassic Park. So there we go. But in all seriousness, any other questions?
With the Siberian permafrost starting to melt and all kinds of discoveries being made up there, do you foresee actual extinct animals being brought back at some point?
I do. You want 50 years, 100 years, 25? We have academics that have been figuring out how to get ancient DNA out of more recent fossils. They're building their own biotech companies right now. It's like right out of the movie. And I don't know, we'll probably see something like a mammoth-ish I don't know, give it 20 years. I mean, we won't know for a while unless something goes wrong, right? I mean, because that'll be, Department of Defense level stuff probably. But I bet you we can. I mean, so I got to go home to Florida, and we got this coyote I dug up in 1997, this little coyote puppy skull. And we were going to send it out for ancient DNA because it might have been recent enough. But any fossil that's actually submerged in water tends to lose all of that. And those of you who are big fossil nerds know that most fossils are deposited by flooding events and creeks and stuff. And so the fossils that might have DNA in them, like some of this permafrost stuff, are also rare when it comes to fossils that might also have DNA. So we might get like recent stuff like mammoths and saber-toothed cats would be cool.
Well, that's what
But,
I meant, because I had heard about a mammoth that they discovered that might actually have something viable.
Yeah, that I'll just to be sort of the skeptical guy on that. That seems like that story goes the rounds every 3 or 4 years. Makes me wonder if it's a Ponzi scheme or not. I will say, however, there are exactly two species of organisms that have been brought back from extinction because of cloning. One is the Judean date palm, which I want to say it went extinct in the late 100s or 200s, 300 CE, because the Romans got tired of revolts in that area and just burned down everything, literally everything, every crop they could find, they burned down. That has been brought back from extinction, and people are actually working now to make cultivars of this date palm. So those are currently extant. The other example that I can think of is the Pyrenean ibex, which went extinct in the 1800s, and they extracted DNA from it, and then they implanted the nuclei into a cell, and a goat gave birth to this. And the individual was alive for 20 minutes after birth, so it's also the only species that has gone extinct twice. Kind of sad, but it's a lot harder to clone animals than it is plants for whatever reason.
So what do you think we're going to see 25 years from now relative to Jurassic Park? Well, we can kind of dish on what JP didn't get right 25 years ago, or 30 each. But like, if we redid this again in 20 years, what are the next big discoveries we're going to make in the field?
That's a good question. Besides genetics?
What do you all think?
Yeah.
Stump them.
I think it might be possible that we might further resolve like some of those relationships between the evolution of flight and birds. There are some hypotheses that are being kicked around right now that perhaps flight actually evolved multiple times in dinosaurs, not just the once in the lineage that led to all the modern birds that we see around us. There is a dinosaur from Hungary, I believe, or no, sorry, not Hungary, Romania, called Belauer, which if you have read Bram Stoker's book, you know that's another name for Dracula. And this dinosaur, when it was described originally, was thought to be a raptor, and it has 2 toe claws instead of the 1. And some more recent analyses have been finding that it's actually a bird and not, or a bird-line dinosaur and not just a general raptor-line dinosaur. So I think those are some things that might get resolved in the future.
Oh, it's really outside of my wheelhouse. Oh, hey, look, we got a question. Oh, in paleo in general?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
You've got a question.
I'm just curious if the dinosaurs in this movie were actually like contemporaneous. Did they all?
ooh,
Nah.
no. We should.
Dilophosaurus was like 200 million years old. T-Rex is 65 million years old.
I believe this should probably be called Cretaceous Park. Most of the dinosaurs come from the Cretaceous, for sure. A smattering from the Jurassic.
It's an equal division.
Do you reckon? Oh, I thought I did
Yeah,
the
because there's
math.
Brachiosaurus is Jurassic. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 150. give or take.
Yeah. That's why they do Camp Cretaceous now.
So another question, like like technology in the beginning of the movie was relatively rudimentary, but was probably pretty advanced for that time. But now, I don't know if you've seen the show Drain the Oceans, where they use multi-point sonar to like take these really detailed scans underwater, and even some of the episodes scan landscapes of ruins. Is that something that has been used much in the paleontology field these days, or will it be, do you think?
So we use things like LiDAR and surface scanning a lot now in geology quite a bit. The vert paleo folks that are looking for field sites often use Google. You can actually go through Google and look at changes in annual climate. And when you look for fossils, you don't want a lot of vegetation and stuff. So you can actually use Google Maps and zoom in on North Texas and see if there's a bunch of shrubs in an area that were keeping you from a site, and then they get burned out or they dry up 2 years later. And Google's updated enough that we use that. So we let satellites kind of guide some of us. And then other folks are using more kind of laser scanning and big scanning projects to understand geology and stratigraphy and stuff better, which helps us understand time and know where to find the fossils.
I have a question here. The movie brings this reflection, whether or not it would be ethical to bring the dinosaur back to life, right? So if you guys were there as part of that team, would you be in favor or against bringing the dinosaurs?
Look, I would probably take their stance that they went a little quick and maybe just introduce the plant eaters first, like a giant petting zoo, and then you could think about maybe some meat eaters.
They really flew too close to the sun on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do T-Rex. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'd do it. Every one of them.
Yeah, I probably would too.
Small ones, smaller ones.
And the herbivores, I mean, hippos kill more people than crocodiles.
Oh,
I mean, let's
that's
release the
true.
hippos.
Yeah, maybe there were some designs to the park, like instead of the sort of drive-through safari style, we could do something a little more elevated.
I think the answer to your question is yes, because we're immediately all bargaining for
Yeah.
exactly how we do it. I will actually take the contrary position and say that it would probably not be a good idea, because if you're willing to spend, effectively what would be billions of dollars to clone a long dead organism, I think that money would actually be better spent, A, understanding how and why all of those organisms were extinct, and also how to protect the animals that we still have with us now. I think that would be the more responsible usage of that money. Not the cooler version.
Right.
I recognize it's not popular, but
Yeah.
yes, sir.
I was just going to ask, going on that cooler version, what dinosaurs would you pick for your park?
So there is a particular kind of dinosaur, or group of dinosaurs from China called Scansoriopterygids, which means climbing wing or squirrel wing. I don't remember my Latin all that well. But they actually have membranous wings, kind of like a bat. And one of the bones that actually supports the wing is a wrist bone. So if you can imagine a bat wing, and then one of your wrist bones out here forms a long, supporting rod, I think those would be the coolest animals to have around, because they're basically like little wyverns. They're actually like little dragons. And they're teeny tiny too, super safe, never killed anybody. Guarantee it.
I'd go in the opposite direction towards more building an aquarium. And I'd have to go deeper in time, of course, and look at some unusual things like Anomalocaris, which is this giant shrimp-looking thing that has huge arm claws on it. And there's Opabinia, which has 5 pairs of eyes on it, and a claw apparatus, also a shrimp weird-looking thing. So I would fill up the aquarium before I got to the land animals.
It's probably smart.
They might taste good too.
Would a dinosaur petting zoo fly? I mean, there are like lots of little burrowing dinosaurs and fluffy ones, and you pet them and feed them little dinosaur chow. Veal, dinosaur veal, and sell that on the side.
Yeah, what's up?
What was your best experience in paleontology or pathology?
You guys want to handle that one first?
Oh, I'm trying to think off the top of my head what my best experience ever has been. I mean, I'm really lucky to get to go to Australia and do lots of field work there, getting to go out and collect rocks and bring them back, dissolve them, and see these amazing, like, half-billion-year-old, delicate little fossils. It's not one experience, but it's an ongoing one that's been pretty rad as just a career. Like, I didn't really see that as being my career. So
I like being outside and stuff, but the coolest thing that's actually happened is with Sue, it was in 1998, and we had to glue her left femur together, which is a nice one. And Sue was the first dinosaur to be put up without drilling holes through it. It's like in the skeleton in Jurassic Park, it was all suspended, and we don't do that anymore. So we had to pour this glue into the femur, and before we capped it off, we wrote a piece of paper that said Bruce Schumacher and Casey Holliday were here in 1998, and stuffed it down in the femur. Capped it off with epoxy. Nobody was ever supposed to see this, right? Never knew. So science moves on, and we learn that dinosaurs grow like trees, and you can drill holes in them and count the tree rings inside of them. And so there's this guy, Tom Cullen, who did his whole dissertation on tree rings of dinosaur femurs. So he's going around drilling, doing cores of dinosaur legs, and goes to Sue, and I get a call from my old boss, and he says, so we were just coring out Sue's femur to figure out how old she was, and this piece of paper came out, and it has your name on it. So this is 2018, so it made it 20 years. And so the world's worst time capsule ever is probably my best paleo experience.
I definitely have to say that mine is, I went to Tanzania, actually, the country of Tanzania, to go work as part of a field crew. And the thing that I can remember very vividly is being on a hill in a rice paddy in the absolute middle of nowhere in Tanzania, quarrying out fossils while listening to Hamilton. So yeah, the genus Teleocrater and the room where it happens live rent-free in my brain now. They use the same neurons. Go for it.
To go back in time, would you choose this field of work again?
Yes.
Oh, if we could go back in time, would we choose this work again?
Ooh. Look, I rolled the dice as is. So I actually put in 2 letters to 2 universities. One was in fine arts and one was in paleontology. And the letter for paleontology came back first, and I just applied for that and did that. So maybe had the other one come back, I would have been in fine arts. But I'm happy with what I chose, for sure.
I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I interviewed for vet school while I was also working in a museum, and they told me I wasn't compassionate enough to be a veterinarian. So they chose for me. I'd still go do this again.
I don't think I'm like normally wired enough to have a normal day job. So I always knew, since I knew that there was like a job that people could do and have, that this was a job, I knew I was going to do that, and I went right for it, and I would do it again.
I was pretty proud to be able to spell paleontologist before most other words as a 5-year-old. So.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for, but please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists.
Thank you all.
Thank
you guys. Thank you for coming.
If you asked a question, you get an extra credit t-shirt as well, so please come see Crystal. Thank you so much.